Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. Deep dive, understanding and mitigating the recent next.js vulnerability, CVE 2023-32006 and similar. In the ever-evolving landscape of web development, staying vigilant against security vulnerabilities is paramount. Next.js, a popular React framework, is no exception. While next.js offers robust security features by default, vulnerabilities can and do emerge. Recently, a class of vulnerabilities, including CVE 2023-32006 and related issues, have garnered attention. This tutorial aims to provide a comprehensive understanding of this vulnerability, how to assess your next.js application's exposure, and concrete steps to mitigate the risk. Understanding the vulnerability, CVE 2023-32006 and related issues. CVE 2023-32006 and related vulnerabilities often revolve around route handling, middleware, and potentially improper input sanitization, leading to potential security issues like server-side request forgery, SSRF. An attacker could manipulate the server to make requests to internal resources or external endpoints they shouldn't have access to. Open redirects. Attackers could redirect users to malicious websites using a specially crafted URL. Denial of service. DOS crafted requests could overwhelm the server, rendering it unavailable. Bypass of authentication/authorization. Exploiting weaknesses in route handling or middleware could allow unauthorized access. Data exposure. Depending on the specifics, the vulnerability could expose sensitive data. The root causes, generally. Several factors can contribute to these vulnerabilities. 1. Improperly configured middleware. Next.js middleware is powerful but requires careful configuration. If middleware logic doesn't correctly validate and sanitize input or handle redirects, it can become a source of vulnerabilities. 2. Dynamic route handling issues. Dynamic routes in next.js, using bracket notation like id.js, can be exploited if the parameter handling isn't robust. Attackers could inject malicious code or access unauthorized data. 3. Incorrect use of next/router. If next/router methods like router.push or router.replace are used without proper sanitization of the URL, especially when based on user input, it opens the door for open redirects. 4. Insufficient input validation. Failing to validate and sanitize user input before processing it can lead to numerous vulnerabilities, especially in server-side rendering scenarios or API routes. Is your next.js application impacted? Assessment steps. The first step is to determine if your next.js application is potentially vulnerable. Here's a detailed process. 1. Check your next.js version. Older versions of next.js are more likely to contain known vulnerabilities. Upgrade to the latest stable version as soon as possible. Use the command npm show next version or yarn info next version to check your installed version. Then, compare it to the latest version available on npm. 2. Review your next.config.js. Examine your next.config.js file, especially the rewrites, redirects, and headers sections. These configurations directly influence route handling and can introduce vulnerabilities if not properly configured. Look for any complex logic or regular expressions used in these sections. Pay close attention to any conditional logic based on user input or environment variables. 3. Audit your middleware, middleware.js or _middleware.js in pages or app directory. Middleware is often the first point of entry for requests, making it a critical area to secure. Asterisk input validation asterisk ensure all user-provided data used in middleware is thoroughly validated and sanitized. This includes headers, cookies, query parameters, and request body data. Asterisk authentication and authorization asterisk verify that middleware correctly authenticates users and authorizes access to resources based on their roles and permissions. Avoid using custom authentication logic unless absolutely necessary, prefer well-established libraries like next.js. Asterisk redirection logic asterisk if your middleware performs redirects, ensure that the destination URL is properly validated to prevent open redirects. Never directly use user-provided data as the redirection target without validation. 4. Review API routes. /pages/API or app/API. API routes are potential attack vectors if they handle user input without proper validation. Asterisk input sanitization asterisk thoroughly sanitize all user input received in API routes using libraries like validator.js, XSS, or custom sanitization functions. Asterisk data validation asterisk validate the format, type, and range of user input to prevent unexpected data from corrupting your application or database. Asterisk rate limiting asterisk implement rate limiting to prevent abuse and DOS attacks. Asterisk authentication/authorization asterisk ensure that API routes are protected with appropriate authentication and authorization mechanisms to prevent unauthorized access. Asterisk error handling asterisk implement robust error handling to prevent sensitive information from being leaked in error messages. 5. Inspect client-side code, especially using next/router. Review any client-side code that uses next/router to handle navigation, particularly router.push and router.replace. 6. Static code analysis asterisk use static code analysis tools like ESLint with security-related plugins or commercial tools designed for security analysis. These tools can help identify potential vulnerabilities in your code automatically. 7. Dynamic application security testing. DAST use DAST tools to test your running application for vulnerabilities by simulating attacks. Tools like OWASP or Burp Suite can help you identify weaknesses in your application's security posture. Mitigation strategies asterisk. Once you've identified potential vulnerabilities, take immediate steps to mitigate them. 1. Upgrade next.js asterisk upgrade to the latest stable version of next.js. Security patches are often included in new releases. Regularly update dependencies to get the benefit of security fixes in underlying libraries. 2. Implement input validation and sanitization asterisk. Asterisk server-side asterisk use libraries like validator.js, for validating input format, XSS, for preventing cross-site scripting, or custom sanitization functions to validate and sanitize all user input on the server side. Asterisk client-side asterisk while server-side validation is crucial, consider client-side validation for a better user experience and to prevent unnecessary server requests. Use the same validation logic on both client and server for consistency. 3. Secure route handling asterisk. Asterisk avoid direct user input in redirects asterisk never directly use user-provided data as the destination URL in redirects. Instead, use a whitelist of allowed domains or paths and validate the input against this whitelist. Asterisk sanitize dynamic route parameters asterisk ensure that dynamic route parameters are properly sanitized and validated to prevent code injection or unauthorized access. Asterisk use basepath carefully asterisk be aware of how basepath is configured in next.config.js and how it affects URL resolution. Improper configuration can lead to unexpected routing behavior and potential vulnerabilities. 4. Secure middleware configuration asterisk. Asterisk validate incoming requests asterisk use middleware to validate incoming requests, check authentication status, and enforce security policies. Prevent open redirects. Avoid redirecting users to URLs provided in the request. If you must redirect based on user input, use a whitelist of allowed domains and validate the input against this whitelist. Implement rate limiting. Use middleware to implement rate limiting to protect your application from abuse and DOS attacks. 5. Implement content security policy, CSP. Configure CSP headers to restrict the sources from which the browser can load resources. This helps mitigate XSS attacks. Customize CSP. Adjust the CSP directives to match your application's specific requirements. Be careful when using unsafe inline or unsafe eval, as they can weaken the effectiveness of CSP. Report-only mode. Start with CSP in report-only mode to identify violations without blocking resources. This allows you to fine-tune your CSP configuration before enforcing it. 6. Regular security audits. Conduct regular security audits of your next.js application to identify and address potential vulnerabilities. Consider hiring a security expert to perform a comprehensive security assessment. 7. Stay informed. Stay up to date on the latest security vulnerabilities and best practices for next.js. Subscribe to security mailing lists, follow security experts on social media, and regularly review the next.js documentation and security advisories. Example: preventing open redirects. This example demonstrates how to prevent open redirects in next.js middleware. Key takeaways: Stay updated. Regularly update next.js and its dependencies. Input validation is key. Thoroughly validate and sanitize all user input. Secure route handling. Be extremely careful with dynamic routes and redirects. Middleware security. Pay close attention to the configuration and security of your next.js middleware. Content security policy, CSP. Implement CSP to mitigate XSS attacks. Regular audits. Conduct regular security audits to identify and address potential vulnerabilities. Defense in-depth. Implement multiple layers of security to protect your application. Don't rely on a single security measure. By following these steps, you can significantly reduce the risk of vulnerabilities in your next.js application and protect your users and data. Remember that security is an ongoing process, and vigilance is key. Always prioritize security best practices throughout the development life cycle. Okay, let's dive into the next.js vulnerability, its impact, how to identify if your application is affected, and how to mitigate it. Introduction: the vulnerability, CVE 2023-4863. The vulnerability we are referring to is likely CVE 2023-4863, a critical vulnerability in the libweb library, a widely used library for encoding and decoding WebP images. WebP is a modern image format that provides superior lossless and lossy compression for images on the web. Although CVE 2023-4863 is primarily a vulnerability within libweb itself, next.js applications can be affected if they directly or indirectly use a vulnerable version of libweb. This most commonly happens when 1. Image optimization is used. Next.js's built-in image optimization features often rely on image processing libraries, like Sharp or Squoosh, that may use libweb for encoding or decoding WebP images. If these underlying libraries are using a vulnerable version of libweb, then your next.js app could be affected when it processes or serves WebP images. 2. Direct dependency. Your next.js application could also directly use a package, node.js module, that depends on libweb. This is less common, but still possible if you are doing custom image processing or manipulation. Impact: The impact of CVE 2023-4863 is severe. It allows for a heap-based buffer overflow. In simpler terms, an attacker could craft a malicious WebP image that, when processed by a vulnerable libweb version, could lead to arbitrary code execution. The attacker could potentially inject and execute their own code on the server or client machine. This is the most serious outcome. Denial of service. DOS. The malicious image could cause the application to crash, making it unavailable to legitimate users. Information disclosure. In some cases, the vulnerability could be exploited to leak sensitive information from the application's memory. Identifying if your next.js application is affected. Here's a step-by-step guide to check if your next.js application is at risk. 1. Check your dependencies. Using npm run npm audit in your next.js project directory. npm audit analyzes your project's dependencies and reports any known vulnerabilities. Using yarn run yarn audit in your next.js project directory. Using pnpm run pnpm audit. Look for any reports of vulnerabilities in packages that depend on libweb, such as *sharp, a popular image processing library for Node.js. *squoosh, an image optimization library from Google. *imagemin web, a plugin to use web encoding within imagemin. If the npm audit or yarn audit reports a vulnerability in these or similar packages, proceed to step 2. 2. Check your Sharp version, if applicable. If you are using Sharp, which is very likely if you are using next.js's built-in image optimization, determine your current version. Open your package.json file and find the Sharp dependency. Alternatively, run npm list sharp or yarn list sharp in your project directory. Compare your Sharp version with the patched versions. Sharp versions that have been patched to address the libweb vulnerability are *sharp at 0.32.6 or later, recommended. *sharp at 0.31.4. *sharp at 0.30.12. If you are using an older version, you are likely vulnerable. 3. Check Squoosh version, if applicable. If you're using Squoosh, determine your version and check if it's using a vulnerable libweb. This is less common, but possible if you've integrated Squoosh for specific image processing needs. 4. Check for direct libweb dependencies, less common. If you're unsure whether you're using libweb directly, you can try searching your node_modules folder for libweb. This is a more manual approach. *run, find /node_modules name libweb. If you find a libweb library, you need to investigate which package depends on it and whether that package is vulnerable. 5. Consider your next.js version, indirectly. While next.js itself doesn't directly include libweb, newer versions of next.js tend to use more recent versions of dependencies like Sharp. Upgrading next.js to the latest version might indirectly help you pull in patched versions of these dependencies. Example: vulnerable code, illustrative, not directly in next.js. This example is to illustrate the potential impact of a vulnerable libweb library, not a direct vulnerability in next.js code. It uses Sharp to decode a potentially malicious WebP image. In this example, if Sharp is using a vulnerable version of libweb, processing the malicious WebP image, malicious.web, could trigger the buffer overflow. Mitigation strategies. 1. Update vulnerable dependencies ***. The most important step is to update any vulnerable packages to the latest patched versions. For Sharp, use npm install sharp at latest or yarn add sharp at latest, or npm add sharp at latest, to install the latest version. This usually pulls in the latest version with the libweb fix. Asterisk if you find other vulnerable packages, update them in a similar way. To upgrade next.js, if possible. Upgrading next.js to the latest stable version can help ensure you're using more recent versions of its dependencies, which may include patched versions of Sharp and other image processing libraries. Asterisk npm install next at latest. Asterisk yarn add next at latest. Asterisk npm add next at latest. 3. Verify patched versions asterisk. After updating dependencies, double-check that the updated versions are indeed installed. Asterisk npm list sharp or yarn list sharp or npm list sharp to verify the sharp version. Asterisk rerun npm audit or yarn audit or npm audit to confirm that the vulnerability is no longer reported. 4. Content security policy, CSP. Implement a content security policy, CSP, to mitigate the risk of arbitrary code execution if the vulnerability is exploited. A CSP helps prevent the browser from executing scripts from untrusted sources. While this won't prevent the initial vulnerability, it can limit the attacker's ability to execute code if they manage to exploit it. In your next.js next.config.js. Important CSP notes asterisk. Asterisk unsafe inline and unsafe eval asterisk avoid using these directives in production if possible, as they significantly weaken the CSP. Next.js uses these internally. Try to find ways to eliminate the need for them, example by using non-inline styles and scripts. Asterisk specificity asterisk tailor the CSP directives to your specific application's needs. Be as restrictive as possible while still allowing your application to function correctly. Asterisk report URI asterisk consider using the report URI directive to report CSP violations to a central endpoint. This can help you identify and fix CSP issues. Asterisk test thoroughly asterisk test your application thoroughly after implementing a CSP to ensure that it doesn't break any functionality. 5. Input validation and sanitization asterisk. Even with updated libraries, it's good practice to validate and sanitize any user-supplied input, including image files. This helps prevent other types of attacks. Asterisk file type validation asterisk verify that uploaded files are indeed WebP images, and not other file types disguised as WebP. Asterisk image metadata validation asterisk carefully inspect image metadata to ensure it's valid and doesn't contain malicious data. Asterisk limit file sizes asterisk restrict the maximum size of uploaded image files. 6. Web application firewall, WAF. A web application firewall, WAF, can help protect your application from a variety of attacks, including those that exploit vulnerabilities in image processing libraries. A WAF can inspect incoming requests and block those that appear malicious. 7. Monitoring and logging asterisk. Implement robust monitoring and logging to detect suspicious activity. Monitor your application for crashes, errors, and unusual resource usage. Log all image processing operations to help with troubleshooting and incident response. 8. Regular security audits asterisk. Conduct regular security audits of your next.js application to identify and address vulnerabilities. Consider using automated vulnerability scanners to help with this process. Code example, updating Sharp. Code example, verifying Sharp version. The output will show the installed version of Sharp. Make sure it's 0.32.6 or higher, or 0.31.4 or 0.30.12. Important considerations asterisk. Asterisk server-side rendering, SSR. If your next.js application uses server-side rendering, SSR, the vulnerability is more likely to be a concern, as the image processing happens on the server. Asterisk static site generation, SSG. If you are using static site generation, SSG, and pre-rendering all your images at build time, the risk is lower, but still present, as the image processing is still happening during the build. Asterisk client-side rendering, CSR. If you only use client-side rendering, CSR, and don't process images on the server, the vulnerability is less likely to be a direct threat, but you should still be cautious about the libraries used by your client-side code. Asterisk comprehensive security. Asterisk remember that security is a layered approach. Updating dependencies is essential, but it's also important to implement other security best practices, such as input validation, CSP, and monitoring. In summary, asterisk. The CVE 2023-4863 vulnerability in libweb can affect next.js applications if they rely on image processing libraries, like Sharp, that use a vulnerable version of libweb. Update your dependencies, implement security best practices, and regularly audit your application to mitigate the risk.